The second point that I've seen with leaders in crisis is because of the pressure, they're not as calm as they need to be. I've certainly evolved that skill over years, and it's critical because as a leader in crisis, you set the tone. And I think we've all been there when our boss is in a bit of a flap. We start to feel that too.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. This is Coach James Short, aka Shorty. And this is a show for those within the real estate industry wanting to lead and grow their real estate business. It's a series of interviews that we conduct for those within the industry. So we're finding out what those leaders are within the industry, what makes them tick, what's their story, what are their strategies, and how to become the leaders and the growers within the industry. But also it's an interview series with those outside of the industry. I'm always a big believer of looking at a whole different part of the pie rather than just focusing on one part of the pie. Because what it does, it allows you to have a different perspective, allows you to get snippets or golden nuggets from those outside of the industry that can look into the industry and go, there's a different perspective. And so I encourage you to reach out to the guests. I encourage you to lean into these series to find out how can these pieces of information, experiences, stories help you lead and grow your real estate business. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, keep your arms and legs in at all times because this next guest is going to be having lots of fun. Darren Smith, with over 36 years of experience in the Queensland Police Service, Darren has developed versatility in highly complex environments, both in uniform and as a detective. A highly resilient person, Darren has managed up to 750 staff in different roles and remains committed to personal development. In 2018, Darren founded his business, Coaching Development AUS, with a mission to make the world a better place by supporting senior leaders. After being involved in a crisis almost 20 years ago, Darren became obsessed with the leadership skills that are required during a crisis. This journey resulted in the creation of the BICRISIS, the By Crisis model, a leadership model about how to lead during crisis and say, by crisis. A multiple national championship winning hockey coach and happily married man with two adult daughters, Darren is also consistently reminded that every dog is like its owner. As a man who has had Chihuahua dogs for most of his life, Darren has had many conversations refuting his assertion. Please, let's welcome Darren Smith. Mate, great to have you. Thank you so much.
James, it's a privilege and an honor to be with you and those that are going to be watching this morning. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. So, mate, let's take me back to those days when, you're in the midst of the force. Like, what was that journey like, leading those big teams and leading those different divisions? And what was the biggest learning that you took away from that time in your life?
Yeah, look, I love the crisis leadership stuff about how to lead in crisis. And certainly from a leadership perspective, the one most important factor that I've learned is that when you're leading and managing people, you really need to treat people individually and treat them as individuals, because what works for one may not necessarily work for another. So having that plan and really understanding your people and your direct reports is key to getting the best out of them.
Yeah, fantastic. And is that where you see from your coaching, from your time in the past, is that where you see most people in those leadership positions, I don't say get it wrong, but not really step into that true potential of leadership where they try and put a blanket across everyone and try and treat everyone the same? Is that or is there, or am I missing the mark there?
No, I think you're spot on. And look, you need to be authentic.
Yeah.
And within boundaries, treating people within a degree of similarity is great. But the reality is, I don't think leaders at times will take the time and effort that it really requires to understand their people. And you only do that by spending more time with people because, James, I'm just the same. We're all complex. And the longer you spend with somebody, it gives you a greater understanding of them, their motivations, and what drives them. And I've really focused that in the last 5 years or so, and I continue to make that a heavy focus when you're leading people, is understanding and knowing your people.
Is that really that's a really good point around that time. Why do you think leaders of today don't spend the time?
I think it's the competing interests, and
Okay.
we can all get wedded to our inbox. And
All that noise, right?
exactly. And can I tell you, the greatest thing that I've learned is making sure that you don't.
Mm.
Um, and having that ability to priority and focus your people, and but also having the arrangements. I mean, we've all got a boss. James, you probably don't, but most of us have a
We all
boss.
do.
If you can understand their arrangement and their requirements, because I think there's this evolvement of people that expecting that you're going to receive a response from an email they send you straight away. And I think that's certainly where we've evolved to, this reliance on inbox. And look, if you don't escape that inbox, you'll be sitting there the whole day. So I got to be honest, I'm really slack on the emails, but it's deliberate to focus your limited time and energy on your people.
Yeah, so true. So today I want to really unpack your specialty around this crisis leadership, and I want to find out what specifically does that mean? What is crisis leadership?
So crisis leadership, and what we know that crisis is inevitable, James. We know that, and history will tell us that. And history will tell us that there's a significant crisis about every 8 years or so. And crisis is inevitable. And leading in crisis is so much more complex because it's not like leading in the day to day. And this is where a lot of really smart and very good CEOs have fallen on their sword, really, in the past, because they failed to recognize the difference between leading as a CEO in the day to day and leading in crisis. And one of the main differences is, leading as a CEO, you can follow your plans. It's a little bit linear. You can follow the bouncing ball and you've got time. But when there's a crisis, you really don't have time. You've got to make decisions under limited information within complexity. And unless you've been in a crisis, I can tell you this with absolute confidence and certainty, unless you've been there, you don't know how you're going to react.
Yeah. Yeah. And is that because obviously there's no, as you said, there's no bouncing ball, there's no plan to it. So how do most people react or leaders react in a crisis? What's their usual go-to mode of method of without, for those who don't know how to handle it, what's most people's mode of method on how to handle crisis?
So what they tend to do is they tend to squirrel themselves away in a room, in their war room, and try and work it out within a room, and get some people around them. But often they're not the right people that you need to have around them. And
Right.
what people need to understand with crisis is that first six hours is so critical, and that's why planning for crisis is so critical, because you need to know not only how you're going to react, but you need to know who you need and who you can call on. Because one thing I can tell you, James, you don't do crisis alone. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm so obsessed with the leadership skills that you need in crisis. And the second point that I've seen with leaders in crisis is, because of the pressure, they're not as calm as they need to be.
Right.
And I've certainly evolved that skill over years, and it's critical because as a leader in crisis, you set the tone. And I think we've all been there when our boss is in a bit of a flap. We start to feel that too. So you set the tone. Your behaviours in crisis are so critical as a leader, and if you're prepared, then you're really one step ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so true. Now, can you give me some context or some examples where not on how people have dealt with crisis, but examples of actual crises in the business world? Like we know crises in the police force world, which gosh, there could be so many of them. But in a business context or a corporate context, what would people define as crisis?
And James, that's a really good question because, and I know a lot of your viewers are in the real estate industry. So crisis means different things for different organizations. And what we know is, for example, in the real estate industry, you can have crisis. There's probably other areas, but the top three for me, which I would strongly encourage leaders in real estate industry to prepare for, are brand, reputation. So the behavior of an individual, as you know, can attract media, because we've got this thing called the internet now. And when things go wrong, it's not like the old days. If things are handled well, everybody knows. And guess what? If things aren't handled well, everybody knows. So that individual brand and reputation of a person, also the branding of the company, but finally, certainly in the financial space too. And I know I'm certainly no thought leader or futurist of the real estate market, but history, there has been a history of financial crisis.
Yep.
And what would that look like for a real estate industry expert and for a team? It certainly could be very confronting. So they're in the real estate space, but there's a really good example of what not to do. And I really felt sorry for this CEO, who's very smart, and well, I think is a very well accomplished CEO, and that was Kelly Bayer Rosemarin, who was the former CEO of Optus. So now I don't know if you've got a mobile phone with Optus, you'll remember October 2022 when you rolled out of bed. Of course, you gave your loved one a cuddle first before you went for your phone. But you've gone for your phone, and what? It's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And this 4 or 5 in the morning, there was that outage. And what happened in that space was, unfortunately, the CEO was not seen until about midday and came out to the media on midday. And so people couldn't make emergency calls. It shut down the rail network in Victoria, I think, of the rail and bus network.
Right.
It created absolute havoc for businesses. And I'm sure that you've probably got people that will watch this that will remember that day. And of course, it came on the back of the data leak, probably about 12 months earlier. So, but there were two really critical learnings that came out of this. And these are key for leaders in crisis and CEOs. Number one, that communication. And the communication, certainly, like waiting until 7 or 8 hours after that happened for the CEO to be on the front foot in the comms piece, was certainly a point of criticism.
Yep.
And secondly, the offer at the end of it for compensation, which ended up being, of course, settled more greatly for business, but originally was a bit of free extra data. And of course, that just more so inflamed people, because, as you know, we've all got plenty of data these days, haven't we, James? So,
totally.
but the thing is about crisis, and here's the key point for your CEOs and those leaders in industry. Guess what? They're always looking for someone to blame. And if you're a CEO, particularly if you're on contract, you're the person that they're potentially going to blame. And you've only got to look at the LA fires. The LA fires are a really good example.
Great example there.
Tragedy over there.
Yep.
Now, it's not a great example that's related to real estate industry, but what it is it's a really important lesson, because the fires very tragically were still burning over there. And already the media reporting's gone to whose fault was it? Who's to blame? Why is this happening? So that's what crisis is like. In the early days, someone will be very quickly looking for a scapegoat.
Yep.
And looking for someone to blame. So
yeah, that's so true. There's some great example. Even up here, like in our floods, because I'm up in obviously Byron Bay area, and the floods back a number of years ago, it was exactly like who's to blame, and And it was different, the different responses and how people responded from SES to council to government to the local trades. It was really interesting. And what I'm really interested to really unpack is your model with it, which is the by crisis. Like this is obviously your accumulation of your experience and your knowledge. So what specifically is it, and how can people use it? Hey guys, just a little side note here. How's it going? Are you on track this year? I know that sometimes this part of the year we can feel like we're in a bit of a grind, a bit of in the trenches. Are you on track from the original plans that you set out for the rest of this year? What I've realized is that with this time of year, we get so distracted and we've got trying to chase so many shiny balls and go down so many rabbit holes. And that's why I created a program called the 90. It's a framework that actually allows you to achieve more in 90 days than ever before. Some of the feedback that we've got from some of the people that have used the process, the 90, is that they've achieved more in 90 days than the whole previous year. So if you'd like to have the tools, have the techniques, have the framework on the 90, so you and your team can achieve more in 90 days than ever before. What it does, it impacts you of how to get clear, what you need to do, and who you need to be to show up in order to achieve the things you want to achieve over the next 90 days. Simply head over to jamesshort.com.au, click on join the waitlist, fill in your details, and one of the team members will be in touch and take you through the 90 framework. On with the show.
So it's a leadership model and it's called by crisis because it shows you how to say by crisis and resolve any situation.
Love
and
it.
that's why it's the by crisis model. And as you know, James, because we've had this conversation previously, this began for me about 20 years ago. I was called out to a incident in the police where a colleague from the station I worked was missing and was later found to be murdered. And at that time, I felt like a failure. And it wasn't my organization. They'd given me skills and tools and processes to manage the incident, but it was my leadership. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to talk to people's experiences. I didn't know the behaviors that I needed. So I became obsessed because I knew 20 years ago, I knew that I would be involved in future crises.
Right.
So I wanted to be prepared. So the by crisis model is something that's evolved over the last 20 years because I wanted to be the best leader I could be and lead and how to behave in crisis. And it's an eight phase model. I've tried to shorten it down a little bit, but the steps are key. So every letter of the by crisis stands for a particular phase of the model. So number one is behavioral. Now we've talked about in some context some of the behaviors within this podcast. Then in the early stage of a crisis, you really need to identify what's important right now. You'll have a whole heap of really competing priorities. So you need to work out what do I need to do right now? What's the number one, number two, and number three most important priority action? And then you look at then I'm looking for a commencement phase. I'm looking at who do I need right now to come and support me. And then you start to plan when you can build that team with you, you start to plan for the response.
Right.
And within the response phase, there's really two key components. And your immediate actions are what's important in that first six to 12 hours. And that is critical. That's where everyone will be all over you and the pressure's coming. And you're going to have to make sure that you respond well to the competing interests. So there's the immediate action phase. And then you've got the strategic phase. So once you've got through that 6 to 8 hours, you're really starting to look at what does the next 24 hours, the next 48, next 72 hours look like. Right. And then of course, the seventh phase is I for investigation, and that's trying to work out, okay, what was the cause and what are we going to do about it? And the final phase is the scrutiny phase, which involves looking at your reputation, and how do you build and ensure you've got trust and confidence with all those people around you. So, look, I'd love the
Wow.
opportunity to meet with any of your real estate industry leaders, and would be happy to share that model with them. And if you wanted a free 30-minute consultation, you can certainly DM me, and I'd love to start that conversation, because I'm obsessed with making the world a better place for leaders.
Love it. And that's it's such a simple but complex model in like it's when you explain it's like,
Yes.
oh yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense. It makes sense. But then when you go deeper, you go, oh, clarity. Yeah, okay, now I get it. And you can see how they all sort of tied into one another and in that step-by-step process. That's fantastic. And you can see if you put a complex or a crisis event in that model, you can see the stages, how simply you've actually explained it. And obviously you go into more depth when you're doing your coaching and training with CEOs and leaders, which is
Yes.
phenomenal. But you can actually it really does resonate, which is fantastic. And that's the thing, right? With this model, it's a fantastic model to go deeper with, you know, in these crises, and you can really see how simple but also complex it actually is. Um, so you're offering an opportunity for people to jump on a call to actually go through to see where this might fit, and then obviously you've got your coaching and training services that accompany that as well. Um, what would be your best? Actually, no, I'll come back to that question in a minute. What's on the horizon for you? What's the next 6 to 12 months looking for you? What are you excited about?
Look, I'm really excited about continuing to support CEOs, and in the crisis leadership space. I've got the buy crisis model and the buy crisis roadmap, and I've been working with local government associations, and the majority of my clients are in the NT. So just working with them about preparing for crisis, because crisis is inevitable, and these models, like particularly the buy crisis model, it's a practical model. Because I can tell you another thing, I can guarantee you, in crisis, you're not going to go diving for the textbook about what to do or to Google.
That's right.
You need practical skills. So that's why I've got the bio crisis model. And the roadmap is how to prepare you and your organization for crisis. So
Great,
one
fantastic.
focuses specifically, and I love, because it's tough. Like, leading crisis is really tough. And that's why I'm so obsessed with making the world a better place for those senior people that are required to lead in crisis.
So true, so true. Now, Darren, on our show, we have our 60-second quiz to find out a little bit more about our guests. Are you willing to play?
I'd love to. I'd love to. I hope my answers are good.
Totally fine. You'll be right. Here we go. Favorite food?
Nachos.
Love it. Favorite movie?
I love Meet the Fockers. I know that's simple.
So good, so good. Favorite holiday destination?
Certainly Europe. London, London, love London.
Great. Do you have a biggest regret?
Not starting the journey to support leaders through crisis earlier through the business.
Yeah, great. Do you have a morning routine?
Yeah, Jim, up early.
Nice. What about an evening routine?
Look, it's always trying to make sure you're preparing for tomorrow, but early into bed, I don't function. If you're up early, I don't function well, and I don't see the point of wasting time. So early to bed, James.
Love it. Do you have a most embarrassing moment?
There's so many. Yes, yesterday I was at a conference, chairing a conference at the NT. It's a veterans conference. The chief minister, who's the premier of there, I only found out a couple of minutes before, as the conference chair, that she was coming in. So not only did I screw up in front of a couple hundred people, not only did I screw up her first name, but
Oh,
also her last name. And anyway, and it was the greatest moment, because she managed to take the mickey out of me in front of everyone. And then I said, how'd I go with that? She went, really bad. I said, okay, well, the only way is up from here. So that's a really recent example, but I've done all the dumb things, mate.
oh, that's so good. If you could choose 5 inspirational people to have dinner with, they could be dead or alive, who would they be?
Donald Rumsfeld, Barack Obama, Cameron Ciraldo, the Canterbury Bulldogs coach. I'm a big Bulldogs fan. Elon Musk. I'd love to pick Elon's brain. That's four. And look, they're all leaders and futurists in the way they think, and I like to understand how they make decisions.
Yeah, fantastic. And if you were Prime Minister for the day, what's one thing that you would change?
Reduce income tax
Oh, I love it. So
and
good.
business tax.
Yeah, so good. So good. One of the questions I was going to ask you before that I was going to leave to now was, is what's your best piece of advice?
Look, I think it's about making sure you put in the hard work. I mean, nothing comes. I don't know about anyone else, but nothing's ever come too easily for me, and I don't mind. I don't mind that, but I know some people might get an easier run, and things can happen through an easier path. But hard work brings rewards, and that's what I've learned, and I'm certainly passing that message on to my fabulous daughters who are in their mid-20s, that you put in the work and the rewards often do come. So yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And where can the audience find out more, get in contact, and learn more about the bike crisis model?
So look, happy to do a free 30-minute consultation with any of your industry leaders. So you can get hold of me on LinkedIn. My website's just getting a revamp at the moment, but you can get hold of me on LinkedIn. And otherwise, my mobile phone, which is 0408 779 706. I'm happy to put that out there. I know nobody will be ringing me in the middle of the night, punking me, or put that up on the toilet wall somewhere. That's 0408 779 706, or coachingdevelopmentoz@outlook.com. But LinkedIn's probably the easiest one. I know all your audience will be on LinkedIn, James.
Fantastic.
And this has been so exciting. It's been such a pleasure to be with you today. I'm really grateful.
Excellent. Darren, really appreciate it. I love what you're doing. Love the messaging that you're doing and the impact that you're having in business communities, but also across the globe. So, mate, thank you very much.
And the time to act is now, because crisis is inevitable. And I am predicting the next global crisis is just around the corner. So I hope I'm wrong, but I'm very confident that we're going to see that. So that's why the time to act is right now, to prepare you, your people, and your organization for the next crisis.
Wonderful. Thank you.